Pi Manuel, Pi Whātaro.
My name's Fergus, and I'm now retired as after being comprehensive nurse for the last 30 odd years, if not longer. I started my training at Hokitika at Seaview when hospital-based nursing training was in vogue, and I completed my comprehensive nursing at Nelson Polytech after they'd introduced that some years later. My family connections with Maori health as such extend back to the time when I was more or less a baby, and I used to accompany my dad, who was a local GP, doing home visits all over the place, particularly to the Arahura Pa, where I just got babysat basically. But it was always being the doctor's boy, the doctor's son. So it's not surprising I went on to become and to go into nursing. It was either that or jail, I guess. I couldn't wait to get out of the West Coast. I just hated it. It was just too boring. There wasn't enough to do. At the age of 16, I'd been in New Guinea working up in the highlands. I was still at high school, but I had a holiday job up there, but that extended out to 3 months' time, and by the time I got back to the West Coast, I really didn't want to be here. There was no future here. There was nothing here really. They were talking about closing the hospitals down and moving everyone to other big centralised hospitals. Community services at that time consisted of community nurses who were run directly by the hospital, out of the hospital itself. Once Seaview closed down, I moved to, just before Seaview closed down, I moved to Queensland with a young family and started working at Mackay Base Hospital, setting up the first psych unit that they'd had there. Up until then, there hadn't been an inpatient psychiatric unit in Mackay. And Mackay at that time was only just starting to open up because of the coal mines, and they were only just starting to get an influx of thousands of new people just suddenly overnight almost. It turned from a little country town to a great big city with all its inherent problems of everyone moving into the area and not enough schools and not enough hospitals and not enough healthcare and not enough services, not enough houses, the usual problems that occur when places suddenly boom. So that was a bit of an experience in learning about how to deal in communities. Then I spent many years working in either Mackay or back here in New Zealand. Briefly I came back. I spent a year full time doing my comprehensive training at Nelson Polytech. Then I went to back to Australia until I started setting up and managing 5 community homes for the developmentally disabled kids that they were kicking out of Collaroy Hospital because it was such a beautiful position on the Collaroy Point overlooking this beach that they couldn't afford to. It was worth more as real estate than it was as housing for 8 developmentally disabled kids. So they built 5 new homes for them, or adapted 5 homes for them in the community, and they needed a manager and someone to oversee the transfer from hospital into the community and set up the staff and stuff like that. So I did that for a while. That was about 2 years into that project when I got knocked off my motorbike, and that was the end of that game. From there, after rehab, which was made more complicated by the fact that I was a Kiwi living in Australia and that I was in Victoria, which had different rules to New South Wales and all that sort of thing. It took the best bit of 5 years to sort all that out. And in the meantime, I'd got really bored and had come back to my roots in New Zealand and started my own jade carving shop here in Hokitika. That worked perfectly well. It was a good little business during the summer. At that time, we actually have a tourist season which was only over the summer. And during the winter time I was going back to Queensland to do contract nursing for people up in North Queensland at that time, who were really quite glad to get someone who they could send off out into the bush, and knew that I wasn't going to start crying for mummy or turn into a
pumpkin at midnight.
Turn into a pumpkin at midnight and want to come home again at great expense. They were basically 3-month contracts. The majority of the time that I worked doing those contracts was from either the acute community mental health assessment team based in Cairns, or the community teams that were based either in Northern District or Southern District, with Cairns more or less as the middle area. In the Northern District, I was sent off to various places from Thursday Island to Cooktown, and from Cooktown basically I had the overall responsibility of looking after people with mental illnesses in the Aboriginal communities which are closely associated with that area, in particular Hopevale, and the other one was called Wudjil Wudjil. After that I came back to New Zealand and I goofed off working around doing Jade, and got a job working for Rata Tiawhina. We're a Maori health provider here, and I worked for them for about 7 years, and got involved in quite a few little community programs that we did.
My name I'm Mel Tabatat. I'm from Kakawishta Howe First Nations. What I do here is I'm the intake worker, outreach worker. I also do deliver programs for the accreditation purpose of Leading Thunderbird Lodge. I also take a community suicide prevention workshop, 2-day workshop, out to communities across, well, it's been across Canada, nationally.